Hi, my name is Dr. Robert Young, and I'm glad to hear that you chose to play the baritone saxophone. Throughout the course of this video, we'll discuss some of the basics necessary to play this instrument. Over the next several days, years to come, I hope that you revisit this video quite frequently, and each time you watch it, I hope you discover something new. So with that said, let's get started and enjoy. Now we could talk about the safest and most efficient way to put together our instrument. The first thing we want to do is to make sure that the case is flat on the floor. The way we could think about the case being upright is that there may be a logo on top of the case, and just make sure that's pointing upward. If you don't have a logo on top of the case, just make sure that the thick end of the case is on the bottom. So now that the case is upward, is on the right side up, we could either unzip, or if you have latches, unlatch all the locks on the case, and then we'll open the case. So the first thing you notice is that the Baritone saxophone is in several parts. You have your mouthpiece, you have the ligature, which goes onto the mouthpiece. You have your mouthpiece cap, which protects the mouthpiece when it's not in use. And you have the reed, which is the vibrating source, and it goes onto the mouthpiece as well. Your neck, your neck strap, and the largest part of the saxophone, which is the body. So the first thing that we want to do is to take your reed and remove it from the case carefully, and either soak the tip of the reed into your mouth, or what I like to do sometimes is to soak it into a cup of water. And while that's soaking, the next thing that we could do is to take the neck of the saxophone and the mouthpiece of the saxophone. And you notice that there's a cork at the end of the neck. And we're going to take the mouthpiece and gently twist the mouthpiece onto the end of the neck. We could say for now until about half of the cork is showing. So after that, we'll take the ligature and slide it over the tip of the mouthpiece, being really careful not to damage the tip of the mouthpiece, because once it's damaged, the mouthpiece is virtually unusable. My ligature may look different than yours. My screws are on the bottom. Your screws may be designed to go on the top. But what's important to notice is that the screws go on the right-hand side. So if the ligature doesn't easily fall onto the mouthpiece, it might be upside down, so just try flipping it around or turning it backwards and see if that works. So the next thing we'll do is take the reed out of our mouth, or in my case, I'll take it out of the cup of water. And we're gonna place the flat end of the reed, or the table of the reed, against the table of the mouthpiece, or the flat part of the mouthpiece. And we're gonna do this by sliding the reed carefully between the mouthpiece and ligature, being really careful not to damage the tip of the reed, because once the reed chips, it doesn't produce quality sounds. So I'm going to slide the reed in between the ligature and mouthpiece, and we want to make sure that the reed is centered on the table of the mouthpiece. And also we would slide it down far enough so that the tip of the reed and the tip of the mouthpiece are virtually aligned. So once we have the alignment set up, then we unscrew the screws of the ligature and slide the ligature down far enough so that we see the U-scrape, which is on the reed. So once everything's properly in place, we could go ahead and tighten the screws of our ligature so that the reed doesn't move around when we're playing. So now we've properly assembled the mouthpiece and the neck. So we'll take the mouthpiece cap and carefully place it over the reed and the mouthpiece. And let's place that aside. So the next thing we're going to do is to pick up the body of the saxophone. But before we do that, we have to put on our neck strap. So the body of the saxophone is the largest part, so we want to be very careful of how we pick it up. Try not to pick it up by the rods or by the keys of the instrument. So I'm going to pick it up by the bell with two hands and move it to my lap. So once I have it in my lap, I'm going to take my neck strap and hook it into the neck strap ring, which is on the back of the body of the saxophone. After that's hooked, you notice at the top of the body of the instrument, there's a black end cap that you may have. And below the end cap, there's a screw on the right-hand side. So I'm going to unscrew that screw just a little bit and remove the end cap and place it back into the case. So once the end cap is out, we take the neck that we already assembled and we gently twist it in its place. And then tighten the screw back, which is on the right-hand side. So now we properly assembled the saxophone. So now we could talk about the proper posture when we're seated playing the instrument. The first thing you want to do is to make sure that both of your feet are planted firmly on the ground. The next thing, we could scoot up in our chair so that our back isn't rested on the back seat of the chair. Next, sit up straight, not too straight that you're tense, and make sure you're not slouching either. So just a nice upright seated position. And the next thing that you want to do is make sure that your head is straight, as if you're talking to somebody that's right in front of you. So make sure your head's not up and make sure your head's not pointing at the ground. So just make sure your head is straight forward. So now we could talk about how to breathe properly when we're playing the instrument. Because the baritone saxophone is a large instrument, it becomes imperative that we take the proper breath and we push a lot of air through the instrument. So what I like to do is to take one hand and place it on your stomach area. And now pretend as if you were saying the word how, and when you say this, feel your stomach area expand outward. Now when you do this, be really careful that your chest area doesn't expand out or that your shoulders don't lift upward. A lot of people think that this is how you take full breaths, but when your chest expands out and when your shoulders go up, that's actually very shallow breathing. So just make sure that your stomach area is expanding outward when you do this. So one last time. So now we could talk about the proper hand position now that we have the saxophone properly assembled. So the first thing that we want to do is to take our left hand and place our thumb in the black thumb rest, which is on the top of the body. So the next thing is to take our index finger and place it right below the first key. My first key is in a teardrop shape. Yours might be in a circle, but what you want to do is to place your first finger on the next key down below that. So you're going to skip a key and then place your middle finger on that key. And then your third finger is going to go right under your middle finger. Now the next thing is your pinky is going to operate these 4 spatula keys right here. So the next thing you want to do is with your right hand, place your right thumb under the thumb hook, which is on the back of the body. And now with your index finger, it goes on the first key, and your middle finger goes on the second key, and your ring finger on the third key. And your pinky operates these 2 spatula keys on the bottom. Now the whole time you're holding the saxophone, you want to make sure that you have a nice relaxed curvature. So if you hold your hands to your side and then pick it up, you notice that your hands are at a nice comfortable curve naturally. So that's how you want to hold the saxophone already. So if you adjust that to the hand position, you notice that your hands are at a nice comfortable curve. So that's how you want to hold the saxophone at every particular moment. So now we could talk about the proper playing position when we're holding the saxophone. So remember where your hands go and take a moment just to get that set. And now we're going to carefully move the instrument to our right-hand side of the body. And be really careful not to bump the end of the saxophone or bump the bottom of the saxophone against your chair or against your case, because remember, this instrument is very big. So be really careful when we move it to the right-hand side of the body. Now you want to make sure that the neck of the saxophone comes directly to your mouth. And if you have to go to the saxophone, you want to make sure that the saxophone comes to you. So I could adjust the neck so that the mouthpiece comes directly to me. And also, If the saxophone seems too high that you have to reach to it, or too low that it comes below your mouth, you can adjust your neck strap so that the saxophone comes directly in your mouth. So just remember, you don't want to sacrifice your posture because the saxophone isn't properly aligned. So just make sure the neck strap and the neck are fitted to how you're sitting. So now we could talk about how to produce our first sounds on the instrument. And in order to do this, we're going to work with just the neck of the instrument. So now let's loosen the screw at the top of the body and unhook our neck strap. We're going to place the saxophone with the spatula keys facing up on my case. It's very important that you don't place it the other way around so that the spatula keys are downward, because they bend quite easily and that could produce some maintenance problems. So now I'm going to take off my mouthpiece cap and set it aside. And now we could talk about how our mouth is formed around the mouthpiece. The embouchure is just a fancy word that means the formation of your mouth or your lips around the mouthpiece to produce the sound on the instrument. So the characteristic embouchure of the saxophone, you roll your bottom lip over your bottom teeth, and I'm going to place about a ½ inch or so of the reed into my mouth so that the reed is rested on my bottom lip. Now the next thing that you want to do is rest your top teeth on top of the mouthpiece, about a ½ inch or so as well. And also rest your top lip on top of the mouthpiece, like this. Now the next thing that you want to do is to focus on the corners of your mouth. The corners of your mouth should be focused inward towards the center of the mouthpiece. And a good way to practice this is to pretend as if you were whistling, or if you were saying the syllables to or do. Notice when you say those syllables that the corners of your mouth automatically focus in towards the center. So altogether it looks like. And lastly, you want to make sure that your chin is flat. Try to pretend as if you're pointing your chin down to the floor. So altogether your embouchure should look something like this. And now, to produce our first sounds, we have to first, again, take a proper breath. So remember, as before, we're going to say the word how, and we're going to create a gap out of the corners of our mouth in order to intake some of the air. So we're going to say how, and then we're going to exhale and blow through the instrument until a sound produces out the instrument. And do this several times until you feel comfortable with it.